The city lights of Shanghai bled into the glass walls of the penthouse, cold and glittering like diamonds, beautiful but merciless. Ashante adjusted the silver cuff on her wrist and checked her reflection one last time. The neckline of her dress dipped lower than she liked, but Cairo's voice still echoed in her head. "You'll wear what I tell you to wear, Ashante. It's business." Everything with Cairo, Lee, was business. Until tonight. She'd been his personal secretary for 3 years, loyal, efficient, invisible. She knew the scent of his cologne, the rhythm of his breath, the small ticks that gave away his moods. She'd seen him destroy billionaires with a single call, charm the media into loving his ruthlessness. But tonight felt wrong. Too quiet. Too careful. The gala wasn't one of their usual corporate shows. Only one man was on the list, Jiang Wu, CEO of Zenith Global, Cairo's most dangerous rival. And Cairo's tone had been like silk when he said, "You'll be accompanying him tonight. Make him comfortable." Her heart faltered. "Sir?" His expression didn't move. "He trusts women more than my men. You'll represent me. Drink, smile, do what it takes to make him talk." Ashante swallowed hard. "You want me to spy? I want you to win." The way he said it, low, deliberate, made something twist in her stomach. She didn't like the gleam in his eyes, the way they lingered on her skin like a hand he hadn't yet dared to place. But she obeyed, because disobeying Cairo Lee was like stepping into a storm with no shelter. The gala was a private suite on the top floor of the Golden Palace. Strings hummed softly. Men in tailored suits whispered secrets worth empires. And then she saw him. Jiang Wu. The world seemed to narrow, sound collapsing to silence. He stood near the window, broad-shouldered and poised in a black tuxedo that fit him like sin. His tie was undone, his hair carelessly swept back, and yet he radiated control, the kind born of power and precision. When his gaze lifted and met hers, the air shifted. Not curiosity, not lust. Something darker, recognition, even though they'd never met. His eyes lingered too long, tracing the soft curve of her neck, the shimmer of her dress. It wasn't crude, it was studying, like he was trying to remember her from a dream. Ashante's breath hitched. For a heartbeat, she forgot why she was there. Something in her chest pulled tight. "Miss," one of Cairo's men nudged her forward. "Go on." She blinked, tearing her gaze away, forcing herself to walk toward the rival CEO. Each step felt like crossing a minefield. When she reached him, Jiang extended a hand. His fingers brushed hers, warm, strong, deliberate, and a shock ran through her so sharp it made her lips part. "You're not from his usual circle," he said, voice low and edged with amusement. "Cairo doesn't send women like you." Her heart raced. "I'm just here to represent the company, Mr. Jiang." "Just?" His lips curved faintly. "Somehow I doubt that." It wasn't flirting. It was warning and temptation wrapped together. And beneath the table, her fingers trembled as she lifted her glass. The music dimmed. The wine was sweet. The air grew thick with unspoken things. Jiang leaned closer, his scent a mixture of smoke and something earthy. "You shouldn't be here," he murmured. "Neither should you," she countered. Their eyes locked, tension so sharp it burned. She didn't notice the glint of the waiter's ring as he set down her drink. Didn't see the almost invisible powder that swirled into the champagne. By the time she realized the room was spinning, it was too late. "Are you?" Zhang's voice broke as he reached for her. His pupils were blown wide. "Something's wrong." Her glass shattered on the floor. She clutched his arm, vision fading, his name dissolving on her tongue. The world went black. She woke to silk sheets, the faint smell of whiskey and skin. Her body ached. Her pulse thundered. And beside her, bare, beautiful, and equally stunned when his eyes opened, was Jiang Wu. For a long moment, neither moved. His gaze swept down her face, her throat, the edge of the sheet she clutched to her chest. He exhaled, rough and low. "What the hell did you do?" Ashante's voice cracked. "You think this was my idea?" He closed his eyes, fury tightening his jaw. "No. I think we were both used." And outside that room, cameras clicked. The story was already written. When she confronted Cairo days later, shaking with rage and shame, he didn't even flinch. "You drugged us," she hissed, slamming her resignation on his desk. Cairo's lips curved slightly. "Don't be dramatic. You both served your purpose. You used me like a pawn." "You were never more than that," he said softly. "But you played your part beautifully." Her voice was raw when she whispered, "You'll regret this." He leaned back, eyes glinting. "The only thing I regret is not doing it sooner." But as she stormed out, heart-shattering, he watched her go, and something strange twisted in his chest. Because he had seen the look in Zhang's eyes that night too. That pull. And for the first time in his calculated life, Cairo Lee realized he might have started a game he couldn't control. The memory came in flashes. Her trembling breath against his neck. The soft gasp that had broken between them when their lips finally met. And the fire, God, the fire, something that wasn't born of drugs or manipulation but pure, raw need. Jiangwu had tried to convince himself that what happened that night was just the drug in their veins, that he hadn't felt something real. But every time he closed his eyes, he saw her face, the way she'd looked at him before the world went black. The way her body had fit against his like it had been waiting. It haunted him. He'd woken alone. The bed cold beside him. No note. No number. Just the faintest trace of perfume and the ghost of her name on his lips. Ashante. His men found nothing. The hotel records had been wiped clean. The footage erased. It was like she'd never existed. Jiang tried to bury himself in work, in revenge, in rage. But nothing worked. The moment he tasted success, her memory came back sharper. That night had changed him in ways he didn't understand. Meanwhile, Cairo Lee sat in his office, victory glinting in his eyes. The scandal had done exactly what he wanted. It pushed Zhang's company to the edge of ruin, and the contract Cairo had been chasing for 2 years now sat signed on his desk. He should have been elated. But he wasn't. Her voice still echoed in his mind. "You'll regret this." And for reasons he refused to name, it made him restless. He told himself it was guilt, but guilt didn't keep a man awake at night. It was something else. Something darker. Weeks turned to months. Jiang became a man obsessed. He'd sent private investigators across half of Asia trying to trace her. Every lead died the same way, silence. But one rainy night, at a charity gala in Seoul, fate decided to remind him of the one thing he could never forget. A voice behind him, soft, low, familiar. "Mr. Wu." He turned. And there she was, Ashante, standing under the chandelier light in a gown the color of midnight, her hair in soft curls that brushed her shoulders. She looked different, stronger, colder, beautiful in a way that hurt. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Jiang crossed the room slowly, every heartbeat thunderous. "You disappeared." Her gaze flickered, calm but trembling underneath. "I had no reason to stay." "You could have told me." "I couldn't even tell myself," she whispered. The tension between them was unbearable. He took a step closer. "I looked for you." Her breath hitched. "You shouldn't have." "But I did," he said softly, voice breaking. "Every day. I couldn't stop." They met again after that, first by accident, then by choice. Meetings became conversations. Conversations became touches. And the touches burned. There was something between them that neither could explain, a pull that ignored logic, time, or the shadow of the man who had destroyed them both. For the first time since that night, Ashante felt alive. Jiang made her feel seen, wanted, not as a weapon but as a woman. And for Jiang, she was the only thing that silenced the ghosts. But happiness never lasts long in the world built by men like Cairo Lee. Because one evening, when Jiang held her close in his apartment overlooking the city, the elevator chimed. And when the door slid open, Cairo stood there. Calm, cold, smiling. "So this is where my secretary disappeared to," he said, voice like a blade wrapped in silk. How poetic. Ashante froze. Jiang's hand tightened around her waist. "We're not finished, Ashante." Cairo murmured, his eyes flicking to Jiang with a hint of something dangerously human jealousy. Not yet. And in that single, suspended moment, the air between all three of them became a live wire. Power, guilt, and forbidden desire twisting together. None of them knew it yet, but the night Cairo orchestrated to destroy them would soon be the same night that destroyed him. For a heartbeat, the world stopped. Cairo Lee stood at the threshold of Jiang's apartment like a ghost materialized out of memory. Immaculate suit, unreadable eyes, and that same unnerving calm that had once made entire boardrooms tremble. Ashante couldn't breathe. Her fingers dug into the fabric of Jiang's shirt. Every instinct in her screamed to run, but her legs refused to move. The past she had fought to bury was standing in front of her, smiling as if he'd just won a game only he understood. Cairo. Jiang's voice cut through the silence, cold and sharp. How did you get in here? I don't need permission to visit an old friend, Cairo replied smoothly, though his gaze never left Ashante. Besides, it seems I've walked into something familiar. Ashante flinched, the memories clawing back, the drugged champagne, the humiliation, the betrayal. Her lips trembled, but her voice didn't. Get out. Cairo tilted his head slightly, as if amused by her defiance. You used to say please. That was before you sold my dignity for a contract. Something dark flickered in his expression, too quick to name, too raw to hide. For the first time, he looked less like the untouchable CEO and more like a man cornered by his own ghosts. Jiang stepped forward, placing himself between them. You've done enough. Leave. Cairo smiled faintly. Funny. That's exactly what she told me before she disappeared. And you let her, Jiang said, eyes burning. You didn't even try to stop her. Stop her? Cairo's tone turned soft, dangerous. You think she left me? I dismissed her, Mr. Wu. Don't rewrite history. Ashante's anger snapped like glass. You dismissed me after you used me like a pawn. Her voice broke, trembling with all the rage she had buried for months. You drugged me, Cairo. You destroyed my name. You made me believe loyalty mattered, and then you ruined me. Silence. The words hung between them, jagged and alive. Cairo's jaw tightened, a muscle in his cheek twitched. For a moment, guilt flashed across his face, raw and unguarded, but it was gone as quickly as it came. You think I don't regret it? He said quietly. You don't get to say that, she snapped. Regret doesn't erase what you did. No, he agreed. But it keeps me awake at night. The stillness that followed was unbearable. Jiang turned toward him, every line of his body coiled in fury. If you ever come near her again, you'll what? Cairo interrupted softly. Kill me? Take her away from the world I built for both of you. Ashante's brow furrowed. What do you mean? Cairo's eyes finally met hers, not as a predator, but as a man stripped bare. After that night when you vanished, I made sure no one could touch you. I buried the story, paid off every whisper. You think you disappeared by chance? No, Ashante. I erased your name because I couldn't stand to see what I'd done to you. Her breath caught. You what? You were the only thing I couldn't destroy, he murmured. And that terrified me. The room trembled under the weight of his words. Jiang's fists clenched. You don't get to make that sound noble. I'm not asking for forgiveness, Cairo said. I'm asking for a chance to fix what I broke. Ashante's voice came out in a whisper, more sorrow than hate. You can't fix it. You can't fix me. Cairo's lips parted as if to speak, but Jiang stepped closer to Ashante, wrapping an arm around her waist, not possessive, but protective. It was a silent declaration. She's not yours anymore. Cairo saw it. The flicker of warmth between them, the comfort that had once belonged to him. And something shattered quietly behind his eyes. I see, he said at last, his voice steady. Too steady. You've made your choice. He turned toward the elevator, but paused just long enough to say, the past has a way of returning when you least expect it. Be careful, both of you. And then he was gone. The silence he left behind was heavier than before. Ashante leaned against the wall, trembling. Jiang brushed a hand against her cheek, his voice a low murmur. Are you okay? She nodded barely. He won't stop. Then neither will I. For the first time that night, she met his eyes fully. There was no fear in them now, only fire. And somewhere in the city below, Cairo stood by the window of his tower, watching the rain streak down the glass. The empire he'd built felt empty. The victory he'd wanted now tasted like ash. You can hate me all you want, Ashante, he whispered into the dark, but you'll never forget me. Rain hammered against the city, like it was trying to wash the world clean. Inside Zhang's penthouse, the tension was thick enough to choke on. Every word, every glance between them was an echo of everything they'd tried to forget, until the phone rang. Zhang glanced at the screen. It's him. Ashante froze. Just his name, Cairo, was enough to make her pulse spike with fury and fear. She snatched the phone before Zhang could answer. What do you want, Cairo? She demanded. To end this. His voice came through low, controlled, but there was something broken underneath. Meet me at the old Han Industries site. Tonight. Not a chance. Then you'll never know the truth about that night. The line went dead. Ashante's stomach twisted. Zhang's expression was dark, unreadable, but his hand found hers. You're not going alone. The abandoned factory was silent when they arrived, except for the sound of the rain dripping through the broken roof. Cairo stood near the center, his back to them, a single light flickering above his head. He turned slowly as they approached. The years of power, precision, and arrogance were gone. What remained was a man stripped of everything but regret. You shouldn't have come, Jiang said. Oh, but I should have, Cairo murmured. This is where it began. It's only right it ends here. Ashante crossed her arms. Say what you came to say, Cairo. His eyes met hers, haunted, hollow, yet still burning with that same dangerous intensity that once drew her in. You think I drugged you to hurt you, he said quietly. But that wasn't the plan. Then what was the plan? She snapped. To use me, humiliate me, and destroy my life for a deal? No, Cairo said, voice shaking now. I sent that drink to Jiang. You weren't supposed to touch it. Ashante froze. What? The deal with his company, it was worth billions. But Jiang had dirt on me. He planned to expose something that could have ruined more than my business. So, I planned to send him a distraction, a night he couldn't explain. A scandal I could use as leverage. You were never supposed to be part of it. The words landed like a blade. Ashante's breath hitched. You're lying. Am I? He asked softly, reaching into his coat. He tossed a small flash drive onto the ground. That's the security footage from that night. You'll see who switched the glasses. Zhang's face paled as realization dawned. Your assistant, she betrayed me, Cairo said. Sold the information to your board and switched the drinks. She wanted to destroy both of us. You got the deal. I got the guilt. And Ashante, he looked at her then, voice cracking. You got the scars neither of us will ever heal from. Silence. Thunder cracked outside, echoing the storm inside them all. Ashante's tears fell before she could stop them. You ruined my life for a game, Cairo. Does knowing it wasn't meant to happen change that? No, he whispered. But it's the truth. And I'd burn the world to give you back your peace. Jiang stepped forward. You're still the same. Always talking about sacrifice when all you've ever done is destroy. Cairo's jaw tightened. You don't understand what I gave up. Then make me understand, Jiang said, voice rising. Cairo turned, eyes glistening. It wasn't about power, Jiang. It was about my father. He was dying, and the only company willing to fund the experimental treatment was the one that owned that contract. I needed that deal signed, no matter the cost. Ashante staggered back as the weight of his words sank in. Everything, the manipulation, the betrayal, the control, had been built on desperation. You could have asked me for help, Jiang said, softer now. I don't ask, Cairo said bitterly. I win. That's what my world taught me. The silence stretched again. Then suddenly, a sound, the crack of gunfire. The window shattered. A bullet grazed Cairo's arm. He stumbled but didn't flinch. Sniper, Zhang hissed, pulling Ashante to cover. Another shot. Sparks exploded from the metal beam behind them. Cairo ducked, blood streaking down his sleeve. Guess I was right. The past doesn't stay buried. Who the hell? Zhang started, but Cairo's eyes went cold. Han Industries. They want the drive, and me gone. He tossed the flash drive toward Ashante. Run. I'm not leaving you, she shouted. You already did once, he said with a faint smile. Do it again. Live this time. Before she could protest, Cairo turned and fired toward the shadows, covering their escape. Zhang grabbed Ashante's hand, dragging her through the rain as gunfire lit up the factory behind them. Outside, they heard the explosion. The blast lit up the night sky, painting everything in fire. Ashante screamed his name, but Zhang held her tight. He knew what he was doing, he said quietly. Her sobs shook against his chest. He saved us. Maybe for once, Zhang said, voice rough. He finally meant it. Weeks later, Ashante sat by the window of Zhang's office, watching the rain again. The flash drive lay on the table beside her, untouched. She hadn't opened it. Not yet. Zhang walked in quietly, his presence grounding her. The investigators found nothing. No body. Her heart clenched. You think he's still out there? With Cairo? Zhang's lips curved faintly. There's always a chance. She looked out the window again, the city glowing beneath the storm. Somewhere out there, she swore she could feel him. The ghost in the rain. The man who destroyed her and saved her all at once. If he is, she whispered, I hope he finally found peace. But across the ocean, in a dim hospital room, a man opened his eyes to the sound of thunder. His arm was bandaged, his memory fractured, but his voice still carried her name. Ashante. The monitor beeped steadily, a new heartbeat for a man reborn from fire. And somewhere, fate began to stir again. The skyline of Shanghai glittered like a crown of fire that night, alive, reborn, unstoppable. Inside LJ Dynamics, the company Zhang and Ashante had rebuilt from ruins, the air was alive with the hum of ambition. Glass, light, and motion, everything they'd built screamed resilience. Ashante stood at the boardroom window, her reflection soft against the city's glow. The woman who once trembled beneath the weight of betrayal now commanded the room. Her tone was calm, her eyes unflinching. The CEO beside her, Zhang Li, had seen to that. The numbers look perfect, Zhang said, sliding the report toward her. We're ahead of projection. We should be, she replied, lips curling faintly. We've both been through hell to get here. He reached for her hand, and somehow, we came out together. Her smile trembled slightly. Together, she echoed. But somewhere deep inside, a shadow still whispered. A ghost she never fully buried. Because some names never really fade. And one of them was Cairo Li. It happened on a Thursday. A quiet afternoon, sunlight spilling through the glass lobby when the doors slid open, and everything stopped. He walked in like the air belonged to him. Cairo Li, alive. Changed. Gone was the sharp arrogance that used to slice through rooms. Gone was the devilish glint that dared the world to challenge him. What stood before them was a man carved from silence. Calmer, leaner, his eyes softer but deeper. The kind of calm that comes only after surviving fire. For a second, Ashante couldn't move. The papers in her hand slipped to the floor. Zhang was the first to speak, his voice unreadable. You're supposed to be dead. Cairo gave a faint, humorless smile. I tried that. Didn't take. They met in the conference room, just the three of them, old ghosts sitting in a glass cage. Ashante studied him in silence. There was no trace of the monster she'd hated, only a man who'd seen too much and carried it quietly. You look different, she said finally. Death does that to a man, Cairo murmured. Then, softer, you look free. We are, Zhang said, tone guarded. So, why are you here? Cairo placed a folder on the table. Because I owe you both more than an apology. And because I can help you build something even stronger. Zhang frowned. We don't need your help. Maybe not, Cairo said, meeting his eyes evenly. But the board you're about to merge with? They're backed by Han Industries' offshore branches, the same people who tried to kill me. They'll burn you from the inside unless someone who knows their system fights from within. Ashante blinked, processing his words. You're saying you want to work with us? No, Cairo said quietly. For you, asterisk. The silence stretched until Ashante finally said, We don't trust you. You shouldn't, he replied, and for the first time, his smile reached his eyes. But maybe you'll believe in who I've become. Weeks passed. Against all logic, Cairo stayed. And slowly, something unexpected happened. The once ruthless CEO became a man who listened more than he spoke, who stayed late to fix problems others caused, who brought calm instead of chaos. Zhang still watched him with quiet suspicion, but there was no hate left, only a strange, silent respect. Ashante, meanwhile, began to see the man Cairo might have been if the world hadn't broken him first. One night, after a long meeting, she found him alone in the office, leaning against the window, watching the rain. You still love the rain, she said softly. He smiled faintly. I used to think it was punishment. Now I think it's mercy. The world's way of washing you clean. She moved closer. Do you regret it, Cairo? Everything? He looked at her, really looked, and for the first time, she saw no darkness, no mask. Just truth. Every day, he said. But not in the way you think. I don't regret what I lost. I regret who I was when I had it. Her throat tightened. You've changed. You helped me, he whispered, without ever meaning to. I used to believe control was power. You showed me it was love. Months later, LJ Dynamics signed the biggest merger in Asian history. Zhang and Ashante stood before the press, poised and powerful. Cairo stood behind them, not as a ghost or an enemy, but as the quiet force that held the shadows at bay. When the cameras stopped flashing and the crowd cleared, they stood together in the empty hall, three people bound by one impossible past. Zhang turned to him. You could have started your own empire again. Why stay? Cairo's gaze softened. Because this time, I don't want to rule. I just want to build. Ashante smiled. That small, knowing smile he remembered from long ago. Then you already have. He looked at them, Zhang's steady strength, Ashante's fierce grace, and felt something he hadn't in years. Peace. You were right, Cairo said, voice low. It wasn't power I needed. It was home. And for the first time, Zhang reached out, clasping his brother's hand. Then welcome back. The night outside was quiet. No thunder. No rain. Just the city alive beneath their feet, and the promise of something new, a future where none of them were defined by what they'd destroyed, but by what they'd rebuilt together. The sea outside the Leaf family villa shimmered like liquid glass, calm and endless under the morning sun. Ashante stood barefoot on the balcony, her hair dancing in the wind, her daughter's laughter echoing faintly from the garden below. It had been 5 years since the storm. 5 years since Zhang and Cairo had stood on opposite sides of a war neither truly wanted to fight. 5 years since she'd been a pawn in someone else's power game. Now, the game was over. And for the first time, all three of them had learned what peace really meant. Down in the garden, Zhongli crouched beside their son, showing him how to plant a small sapling. He wasn't the same cold strategist who once built empires with blood and steel. He'd learned gentleness. He'd learned patience. And he'd learned that power meant nothing if you had no one to share it with. Ashante walked down to them, her dress fluttering in the breeze. When Zhang looked up, there was that quiet, reverent smile, the one he reserved only for her. You're up early, he said, wiping a streak of soil from his hand. Someone has to keep you from turning our son into a workaholic, she teased. Impossible, he said, pulling her close. He's already got your stubbornness. She laughed, soft and free. It was a sound Cairo once said could silence a room. Speaking of which, from the corner of the property, the sound of a car engine purred, low and expensive. Cairo stepped out in a dark shirt, sleeves rolled, sunlight catching the faint scar along his jaw. He looked lighter. The haunted shadows were gone, replaced by something quieter, contentment, maybe even joy. And beside him stepped a woman, tall, serene, with an artist's hands and kind eyes. Ashante's heart lifted. He finally brought her, Zhang murmured, watching his brother approach. Who is she? Her name's May, he said with a small smile. A sculptor. They met when she mistook him for a museum guide in Florence. Ashante's laughter broke free again. He must have loved that. He did, Zhang said, wrapping an arm around her waist. It's good to see him happy. When Cairo reached them, there was no distance, no hesitation. He hugged his brother first, hard and real, the kind of embrace that made up for years of silence. Then he turned to Ashante, his voice low but warm. Still standing, I see. Still fighting, she replied, smiling softly. Good, he said, eyes gleaming. You were always the fire in the story. He turned to the children, crouching to meet their gaze. And you two, promise me you'll grow up knowing peace, not power. Their daughter nodded solemnly. Promise. For a moment, the four of them, 5 now, with May standing beside Cairo, stood together in the sunlit garden. No revenge, no secrets, no debts left unpaid. Just family. Not by blood, but by battle. Later that night, the 4 adults sat on the terrace overlooking the city lights. Cairo's voice broke the comfortable silence. Funny, he said. I spent half my life trying to own the world. Turns out all I needed was to stop running from it. Ashante looked at him, eyes soft. You found peace, Cairo. That's rarer than wealth. No, he said, glancing at May. I found love. The peace came after. Zhang raised his glass. To starting over. To the fire that didn't burn us. Only refined us. Glasses clinked. The sea whispered below. And for the first time in years, the Lee-sworn brothers and the woman who had bound their fates sat beneath the sky without shadows. Ashante leaned into Zhang's shoulder, the sound of their children's laughter drifting through the open windows. The world, once sharp and cruel, had finally softened. And in that quiet, shining moment, they all knew. The past no longer owned them. They did.